The Galactic Assembly had never known a silence like this. The vast halls of the Halo of Reason, the grand diplomatic station that orbited the center of the Assembly's collective power, hummed with nervous energy. The galaxy's oldest and most advanced species, those who had seen millennia of rise and fall, had come together in an emergency session like no other. The topic? Humanity. Ambassadors from 317 member worlds, each species more ancient and technologically sophisticated than the next, sat in uneasy silence. A central hologram flickered, projecting a void, utter darkness, where Earth and its neighboring colonies had once been. A faint pulse of light appeared in the distance, the last known trace of a human fleet that had disappeared without warning. No distress signals had been sent, no messages of any kind. The human systems, once interwoven with the heart of galactic commerce, now lay dormant. The comms were dark, and the stellar networks they had built for millennia had been wiped from existence, as if someone had pressed delete on the entire human presence. "Explain again how this happened," demanded High Regent Veril of the Jurdal, an ancient race with a frail body, but a mind that could fold space with a thought. His voice trembled, though no one could tell whether it was out of genuine concern or from the growing tension in the room. "All human comm systems ceased functioning, Regent," responded Melik, the representative from the Vascan, a species known for their psychic sensitivity. "No warning, no explanation. It began a decade ago, but within the last year, every human colony, world, and outpost has gone completely silent. No ships, no transmissions, and you've sent ships to investigate." Veril pressed. "We have," said Melik, her voice tinged with frustration. "But there's nothing left. No bodies, no wreckage. Only ghost systems, abandoned infrastructure, and strange anomalies. The few probes we've sent to their outposts report that the ships are locked down. Their defense grids are still active. And yet, no one is there." The room fell silent. Every member of the assembly, from the towering, graceful Pruneri to the insectoid Bract, exchanged uneasy glances. The silence felt heavier with each passing moment. Humanity had always been a chaotic, unpredictable species, brimming with raw potential, but often self-destructive. The assembly had once speculated whether they could be brought into the fold as equals, whether their volatility could be harnessed into something greater. But this was something no one had predicted. "Did they abandon us?" asked a voice from the back, a low, grating tone, coming from Ilith, the representative of the Vextar, a species known for its cold pragmatism. "Did they turn away from the galaxy, or are they simply gone?" "We don't know," Melik said, her voice unsteady for the first time. "We don't know what happened to them." "We need to understand," Veril interjected sharply, his alien eyes narrowing. "If humanity has destroyed itself, the consequences will ripple through the galaxy. But if they've left, then we must consider what that means for us." The High Regent paused, then turned toward the assembly. "Prepare a fleet. We will search the periphery. And for all we know, they may have become something more than we imagined. But we cannot ignore the danger they pose if they are still alive, and if they've truly transcended. Then we must learn from them." Melik finished, her gaze darkening. "And we will find them." The assembly members murmured, their minds spinning with possibilities. What could a species like humanity be capable of if they had turned away from the galaxy? Was it abandonment or was it evolution? Outside the halo of reason, the stars blinked coldly in the vast expanse of space. The galaxy had just entered a new chapter, one that would be written not by the hands of its oldest civilizations, but by the unknown, silent legacy of a species that had once been their brightest, most unpredictable flame. And that flame, it was now gone. The probes that were dispatched to the outer rim were unequipped for what they found. Humanity had always been a scattered species, inhabiting planets from the cores of habitable systems to the fringes of the galactic expanse. In the past, these colonies had been teeming with life, human ingenuity and stubbornness creating thriving hubs for industry, research, and culture. Now, they were graveyards. The first probe, sent to an abandoned Terran colony on the planet Volfar, was the first to send back chilling footage. A once bustling city sat under a sky now perpetually clouded by an eerie, unnatural fog. Towering structures, castles of metal and glass, stood perfectly still, their streets empty, their windows dark. No signs of life, no evidence of violence. The city was pristine, as though it had been suspended in time, waiting for something that would never come. Even the life support systems were offline, but the infrastructure was intact, undisturbed by the passage of time. As the probe zoomed closer to a once bustling port city, it scanned for any signs of human presence. There were no signs of evacuation, no hastily abandoned personal items, no remnants of the frantic chaos of a sudden departure. The port, once a hub of activity, was now silent. Only the sounds of distant winds carried through the digital relays. The human ships, some of the most advanced in the galaxy, were gone, but their docks remained, abandoned as if the crew had simply walked away. The Assembly's analysts found a pattern emerging. Not just one, but dozens of human colonies had been quietly dismantled, almost surgically. Their beacons, those essential communication and navigation points that anchored the colony systems, had been deactivated. Shipyards, too, had been stripped clean. What once might have been a simple act of retreat or defense now seemed methodical, even deliberate. The signs of a long-planned exodus were everywhere. On the human world of Aero 7, a deep space station recorded a strange anomaly. Its sensors had long ago failed to register ships leaving the system, but its internal surveillance had recorded the slow, deliberate shutdown of all systems. The last data to transmit before it went dark was a single line of text, scrawled in a primitive Terran dialect that even the most advanced species of the Assembly couldn't easily translate. "We leave no trace but this." The more the Assembly's teams combed through the records, the more they realized that humanity hadn't left because of disaster or destruction. They had left because they had chosen to. These colonies were not abandoned in haste. Instead, they were abandoned with surgical precision. Systems deactivated, archives wiped, and even their starships rendered inoperable. The galaxy's greatest human achievements, the feats that had inspired wonder and fear in equal measure, were being erased, not by external forces, but by the hands of the humans themselves. An unsettling truth began to form. Humanity had not only chosen to vanish, but they had engineered their departure. Why would they do this? High Regent Veril muttered, watching the data unfold before him. His ancient mind struggled to comprehend the scope of it. Was it a retreat? A new kind of war strategy? Or something else entirely? "They are hiding something," Melik said, her voice steady but laced with anxiety. "Or they are preparing for something. I don't believe they simply abandoned us out of fear. No, they've made themselves impossible to find on purpose." The thought echoed across the Assembly. What had they seen? What had they learned? The final transmission, which came from the last known human colony near the system of Canis Major, sent a single warning. The damage is done. What damage? The question burned at the edges of the Assembly's thoughts, but they didn't have an answer. The more they dug, the less they knew. It was clear now. Humanity hadn't just vanished. They had left, and they had left nothing behind but the question of why. And the answer, whatever it was, remained tantalizingly out of reach. The next few weeks were a blur of frantic motion as the Assembly scrambled to make sense of humanity's disappearance. Hundreds of reconnaissance ships were dispatched, scanning every known system where humans had lived or traveled. In some places, entire colonies were simply gone, as though they had never existed. In others, the evidence was haunting. Worlds abandoned with terrifying precision, each one eerily devoid of human life or any clear explanation. Then a breakthrough came from a lone, independent merchant vessel, the Stellar Nomad, which had been making its way along an uncharted route at the farthest reaches of human space. It had found something. A derelict human cruiser, the Vanguard, floating in the void, abandoned but intact. It had no power, no crew, yet its hull was undamaged, its weapons systems dormant. What was even stranger was that the Vanguard seemed to be drifting toward an invisible boundary, a line in space that no one had ever mapped or understood. The stellar nomad captain, an unremarkable individual by the name of Rhea Voss, had been scanning the wreckage when she received an automated transmission from the Vanguard. It wasn't a distress signal or a warning. It was a message, a single hologram that flickered to life the moment her vessel came within range. The image projected a human woman, young and confident, standing on the bridge of the Vanguard. She wore a military uniform, her face pale but determined. Her eyes locked onto the camera, and for a long moment, she simply stared. Then she spoke. "We knew you'd come, but we'll be gone before you find us." The message ended abruptly, but not before one chilling detail flashed across the screen. There was no indication of where the Vanguard had been, nor of its destination. Only coordinates, cryptic and shifting, that meant nothing to any of the assembly scholars. But something about them felt familiar. The coordinates pointed to the edges of known space, to regions where no human had ever ventured. And yet it was clear they had been there, and they had left. Captain Voss, shaken by what she just witnessed, quickly relayed her findings to the assembly. Within hours, the council had mobilized a team of top analysts, diplomats, and military commanders to assess the situation. They had to find out where humanity had gone and why. Every other lead had gone cold, but this message, the first solid piece of evidence that humanity had not simply disappeared into nothingness, was a potential key to unraveling the mystery. As the days passed, the coordinates embedded within the message began to torment the assembly. They led to a sector of space known as the periphery, a vast, uncharted region far beyond the boundaries of what had been mapped or explored, a region where the laws of physics seemed to bend in strange ways, and where star systems flickered in and out of existence, as if governed by forces beyond the understanding of even the most advanced species in the galaxy. It was a place no one had dared to venture, a zone where time itself seemed fractured. And yet, as the assembly debated, the eerie certainty grew among the highest-ranking officials. Humanity was not gone. They were somewhere out there, somewhere beyond the periphery, hidden from view, and they had deliberately left a trail that the assembly was now desperate to follow. But what they would find when they crossed that boundary, no one could yet say. The first step toward uncovering humanity's secret had been taken, and it was only a matter of time before the galaxy learned the truth. If the humans truly were still alive, they had become something that no one could predict. And if they had left of their own accord, they had chosen a path no one could follow. The Vanguard's message echoed in the back of their minds. "We'll be gone before you find us." But the assembly was already moving, and they wouldn't stop until they had the answers. As the assembly's fleets ventured toward the mysterious coordinates given by the Vanguard's last transmission, a deeper, more unsettling discovery began to take shape. Data streams, intelligence reports, and classified files from across the galaxy began to paint a chilling picture of humanity's history, one the assembly had only glimpsed before, but never fully understood. For centuries, humanity had been a subject of fascination and fear to the galactic powers. Their rapid growth, violent history, and unpredictable nature made them difficult to predict. It had taken only a few hundred years for humanity to go from a barely recognizable species on a single planet to a powerful force across the stars. But their sudden expansion, followed by a swift and enigmatic retreat, had puzzled even the oldest civilizations. And the more the assembly examined humanity's past, the more it became clear that something had always lurked beneath the surface, something far greater than anyone had realized. The first signs of humanity's potential had been noted during their early years of space exploration. Unlike many races, whose technology had been nurtured and guided by the older, more advanced species of the galaxy, humanity's breakthroughs had often come in unexpected bursts. A colony here, a lone scientist there, and suddenly, humanity was developing technologies that the Assembly's best minds struggled to comprehend. The early warnings came when a handful of human scientists, acting alone, had achieved feats that should have been impossible: artificial intelligence that could evolve on its own, engines that could bend the fabric of space, and weapons capable of felling entire fleets without firing a single shot. The Assembly had responded, of course. In the beginning, they had tried to help. They had sent diplomats and advisors to Earth, attempting to guide humanity along a path of cooperation with the galactic community. They offered knowledge, technology, and alliances, but each time, humanity had resisted. They had listened, yes, but only for so long. And when they disagreed with the wisdom of the Assembly, they had ignored it. The humans, it seemed, preferred to learn on their own terms. It wasn't until the so-called Great Strife that the Assembly realized how dangerous that could be. It was a period of internal conflict, one that nearly shattered humanity's fledgling empire. The Assembly had expected this, an immature species, racked by war, tearing itself apart before it could stand united. But what no one had predicted was how quickly humanity healed from the wounds of war. Not only did they recover, they evolved. The human race, in the span of a mere generation, had transitioned from a fractured species to a unified whole. The war had been a test of their survival instincts, and they had passed. They had restructured their society, built a new order, and forged alliances among themselves that were as binding as any made with the Assembly. What had been a volatile, dangerous species was now something else entirely. A species that could endure anything, adapt to anything, and ultimately thrive. But the most troubling discovery came from the human archives, deep within the files of their central government. There, in encrypted messages only partially deciphered by Assembly experts, was a hidden truth. Humanity had been preparing for this moment. The cryptic phrase echoed through the decryption feeds: "We are not the future you imagined. We are something new, and we will not be controlled." This, the Assembly realized, was no accident. Humanity had known. From the very beginning, they had understood the risks of their own power. They had played the role of the underdog, of the unruly child, but now it was clear they had been preparing for an eventual departure. The question was, why? What had they seen? What had they learned? Humanity had always been an anomaly, a paradox, wildly unpredictable, but undeniably brilliant. But now, as the Assembly pieced together the final fragments of this dark puzzle, it was clear humanity had outgrown them. They had evolved beyond the very system that had once tried to guide them. And they had made a choice to leave, to go beyond the reach of even the Assembly. The galaxy had underestimated them, and now, as they followed the coordinates left behind, it was becoming painfully obvious. Humanity had not been waiting to be saved. They had been waiting for their departure. And the Assembly was only now beginning to realize the true cost of their interference. The fleet of the Galactic Assembly arrived at the outer rim of the periphery, an area long considered too wild, too unstable to chart with any certainty. The laws of physics here seemed to bend and fold in on themselves, creating pockets of reality where time stretched, compressed, or seemed to collapse altogether. No one had ever ventured this far, until now. In the middle of this uncharted void, hidden within a pocket of space where the stars seemed to flicker like dying embers, lay Eden 9, a human colony that had, until recently, been assumed lost to the tides of time. It was one of the last colonies humanity had established before their sudden and mysterious exodus. In the years before the disappearance, Eden 9 had been a utopia of sorts, lush, verdant, and home to a thriving population of humans and off-world settlers alike. Yet, like all human colonies, it had gone silent long before the final departure. What the Assembly fleet found upon entering Eden 9's orbit was nothing short of eerie. The planet itself was beautiful. Green landscapes, towering trees, and clear rivers that glittered under a pale sun. Yet there was no movement. No ships in orbit, no signals emanating from the surface. The colony's once vibrant cities lay eerily still, as though frozen in time. Upon descending through the planet's atmosphere, the fleet encountered something that would remain with them for the rest of their lives. The first few scouting parties reported that the city's streets were pristine, as if awaiting inhabitants that would never return. Buildings stood tall, their glass windows gleaming, their walls untouched by time's wear. There were no signs of struggle, no abandoned belongings scattered on the streets as if the inhabitants had fled in haste. The silence was deafening, but there was something strange about the atmosphere. As the assembly team made their way through the deserted metropolis, they discovered that the life support systems were still running, though they were heavily restricted. The atmosphere inside the city's central district was breathable, the temperature regulated to a comfortable warmth. There was no sign of deterioration anywhere. Everything was too perfect, too controlled. The most unsettling discovery came when the delegation reached the heart of Eden 9, a massive building that had once served as the central hub of human governance. Inside, they found a museum of sorts, an exhibition dedicated to the history of humanity's journey through the stars. Yet what lay within the museum's walls was not the proud tale of a young species taking its first steps toward the galaxy. Instead, it told a darker story. The walls were lined with artifacts, but not the typical trinkets or sculptures one might expect. Instead, there were holographic recordings, visual memories, stored in a pristine state. The scenes they displayed were disturbing. Humans working alongside alien species, their faces filled with confusion and frustration as they tried to make sense of their place in the larger galactic tapestry. But the images also displayed the cracks, those fleeting moments when humans seemed to look beyond the confines of their own species, as though they were searching for something that transcended the physical realm. One image stood out. It was a picture of Earth, taken from a distant orbit, its surface tranquil, serene. The caption beneath read, "What we leave behind." It was the last exhibit in the museum, placed strategically as if to drive home a point. The words hung in the air like an omen. The damage is done. The words echoed, repeated by the AI embedded in the museum's systems. The phrase had become a refrain, a mantra for what had transpired. As the delegation wandered the silent halls, they encountered something even more unsettling. At the center of the building, in an alcove carved from stone, stood a monument, a statue of a human, but not one they recognized. The figure was tall, elegant, and had an otherworldly glow to it. It was not a representation of a person, but of an idea. Something beyond flesh and bone. Something that seemed to exist on the cusp of existence itself. The final plaque beneath the statue read, "We have gone beyond. The galaxy is not for us. We leave it for you to understand." The message was clear. Humanity had evolved. They had transcended physical form. And the haunting, unanswered question remained. If humanity was no longer bound by the constraints of the physical world, what were they now? What had they become? For the assembly, the implications were staggering. The humans had not simply vanished. They had ascended, leaving behind only the remnants of their once immense potential. The galaxy had been blind to it. And now, staring at the monument, they were left to question whether humanity had known all along what they were capable of, and whether, in leaving, they had left the galaxy with a gift or a curse. The search for answers was far from over, but the assembly had now realized one painful truth. They were not the ones in control of this story. They had never been. The discovery on Eden 9 sent shockwaves through the Galactic Assembly. The monument, the museum, the strange, almost prophetic message. It all pointed to one inescapable conclusion. Humanity had been preparing for this for a long time. They hadn't simply left the galaxy. They had ascended to something beyond comprehension, beyond the limits of known science and technology. And the more the assembly delved into their records, the clearer it became that they had left for a reason. But what was the true cost of humanity's departure? What had they left behind in their wake? The Assembly dispatched a new wave of ships to investigate the periphery, the enigmatic region that had once been considered too dangerous to chart. In the days following the Eden 9 discovery, reports flooded in from various scientific outposts within the region. Strange phenomena were being detected, subtle distortions in the fabric of space-time, energy fluctuations that defied the known laws of physics, and most alarming of all, entire star systems that seemed to blink in and out of existence. The periphery was not just an uncharted wilderness, it was a rift in the very nature of reality. And now, it was becoming clear that humanity had been the first to unlock its secrets. In the wake of the latest findings, the Assembly called for an emergency summit. Representatives from the most advanced species in the galaxy, Veril of the Jerdal, Melik of the Vascan, Elith of the Vexstar, and many others, gathered once again within the halo of reason, their minds heavy with the weight of the revelations. "We've all seen the data," Veril began, his voice unusually somber. "Humanity has not simply retreated. They have transcended. They are no longer bound by the laws that govern us. They've crossed a threshold we cannot even begin to understand. It's worse than that," Melik added. "They didn't just unlock the periphery. They've bent it to their will. The data from the probes indicates that entire portions of the galaxy are shifting, altering, as if reality itself is being reconfigured, and it's all centered around the places humanity inhabited before their departure." Elith's cold, insectoid eyes narrowed. "We've underestimated them for far too long. Humanity's recklessness, their unpredictability, it was never a weakness. It was a strength. They've played the long game. And now we're the ones left scrambling to catch up." A wave of unease rippled through the room. The realization was dawning on them. Humanity hadn't just gone to the periphery. They had done something to it. They had altered the fabric of reality itself in ways that defied comprehension. And now, it seemed that the very nature of the galaxy was beginning to change. The coordinates found on Eden 9, leading to the very heart of the periphery, were being analyzed once more. This time, however, the readings were more precise. And what they revealed was nothing short of catastrophic. The periphery, once a wild and unpredictable region, had become a catalyst for an existential shift. "We need to send a fleet," Veril said, his voice trembling with the weight of the decision. "If humanity is beyond us, if they've altered reality in ways we cannot control, then we must find them. We must learn from them or risk being left behind. If we do not understand their purpose, if we do not comprehend the nature of what they have done, the galaxy itself may unravel." As the leaders deliberated, a single, chilling thought echoed in each of their minds. What if humanity was not just transcending, but preparing the galaxy for something else? Was humanity preparing to leave the galaxy entirely? Had they seen something that the rest of the galaxy had not? Were they leaving to prevent an even greater catastrophe? Or worse, had they set something in motion that no one could stop? As the council meeting came to a close, the Assembly leaders knew that the galaxy's future hinged on one question. What had humanity become, and what did they want? The answer was still out of reach, but the Assembly had no choice but to push forward into the unknown. The boundary between reality and something beyond was slipping further out of their grasp, and if they didn't act quickly, they might lose the chance to find out what humanity had left behind. As the Galactic Assembly moved closer to the heart of the periphery, the situation grew increasingly dire. The rift in reality, once thought to be a natural anomaly, was no longer a distant phenomenon. It was expanding. The energy fluctuations that had been detected across the galaxy were now intensifying, warping space-time in ways that no known technology or understanding could predict. Stars blinked out of existence, while others flared into violent bursts of energy that would have been impossible under normal circumstances. Entire star systems flickered as if they were the remnants of dreams fading into nothingness. The Assembly's fleet, despite its advanced technology, struggled to maintain a stable course. The fabric of space was fraying, and as they drew closer to the coordinates left behind by humanity, the distortions grew worse. Navigational charts had become unreliable, star maps twisted and blurred. The edges of their perception seemed to bend, as though the universe itself was not simply being altered, but was beginning to lose coherence. The first truly alarming sign came from a relay station located near the periphery's outer boundary. The station had been operating normally, transmitting data on the shifts in spacetime. But when the fleet's lead vessel, the Astral Sovereign, came within range, the station's final message came through. A simple, jumbled sequence of coordinates. The transmission was only a few seconds long, but it contained something none of the assembly's experts could decipher. The final word, however, echoed in the minds of all who heard it. It's already too late. No one knew what that meant, but they knew one thing for sure. It was a warning. A warning that the nature of the galaxy was changing, and perhaps the key to understanding it was no longer within their grasp. The fleet continued its journey deeper into the periphery, now completely isolated from the rest of galactic space. Communication with other sectors had become impossible. The rift in spacetime interfered with even the most sophisticated communications technology. The fleet's only hope now was to reach the center of this distortion, where humanity had once been, and they hoped, where they might find the answers. Meanwhile, within the Astral Sovereign's command deck, a tense meeting was underway. The leaders of the fleet, now desperate for answers, had gathered to discuss their dwindling options. "We're being drawn in, deeper and deeper," said Captain Arlay, a veteran of many conflicts. "Every instinct I have tells me we should turn back. But something beyond our comprehension, is pulling us toward the center of this." Melik, the Vascan diplomat who had become a central figure in the Assembly's investigation, spoke with a quiet urgency. "We can't turn back. The data we've gathered shows that the rift isn't just a physical anomaly. It's as if reality itself is breaking down. Time doesn't flow the way we know it anymore. If we wait too long, if we allow this to expand unchecked, the entire galaxy could be consumed by it." The weight of her words hung in the air like a cold fog. There was no going back. The only way forward was to understand the origin of this cosmic upheaval, and perhaps to stop it, if it could be stopped at all. Then, as the fleet neared the epicenter of the rift, something happened that made the heart of the assembly skip a beat. A massive structure materialized in front of them. It was neither ship nor station, but something more ancient and unknowable. A monolithic, shifting construct, made of materials that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Its shape was fluid, ever-changing, as though it was not fully anchored in space or time. It pulsed with an eerie, faint glow, radiating waves of energy that scrambled the sensors of the fleet's ships. At first, no one knew what it was. But then, as they studied the anomaly closely, a pattern began to emerge. There were markings, symbols etched across the surface of the structure, symbols that bore an unsettling resemblance to the data they had uncovered from humanity's records. The very same symbols that had appeared in the hidden archives on Eden 9. The humans had been here. They had built this. And now, it was clear, the answers they sought were not just ahead of them, but inside this strange, impossible construct. The rift, the anomalies, the unexplained shifts in reality. They had all led them to this moment. But what would they find within this ancient structure? Would it be a clue to humanity's transcendence, or a harbinger of something far worse? The fleet hesitated, suspended at the threshold of the unknown. No one had ever seen anything like this before, and yet, as they all stared at the unearthly monument before them, they knew one thing. Their understanding of the universe, and of their place in it, would never be the same again. The silence in the fleet was deafening, as the ship slowly drifted closer to the shifting, impossible structure. It loomed before them, its size beyond comprehension, its form constantly changing, like an entity that existed both within and beyond the realm of perception. The ships hovered, their crews staring at the phenomenon in awe and fear. Captain Arle stood at the helm of the Astral Sovereign, her eyes fixed on the structure. A strange pull seemed to emanate from it, a force that tugged at the very core of her being, compelling her to approach despite the overwhelming sense of dread. The air in the command deck seemed thicker, heavier, like something ancient was stirring, something that had lain dormant for eons, waiting for them. Melik, standing beside Arle, spoke softly. "The symbols, they're human. I've seen them before, in the archives, on Eden 9. This isn't just some structure, it's their legacy. The culmination of everything humanity has done since they first left Earth. But it's more, much more." The fleet's sensors pinged as they tried to analyze the structure's energy signature. The readings were unlike anything they had encountered before. The material it was made of seemed to fluctuate, shifting between solid and ethereal states. It wasn't just a physical object. It was something that resonated across multiple dimensions, as if it existed simultaneously in several layers of reality. The voice of Bylith, the Vextar representative, cut through the tension. "We've entered something else entirely. This isn't just a structure, it's a bridge, a nexus. Humanity didn't just leave. They've opened a door to something beyond." As the fleet approached the structure's center, a pulse of energy rippled outward from it, washing over the ships. The crew members gasped as their instruments flickered, then stabilized. A sudden clarity filled the air, as if the very fabric of space and time had momentarily realigned. In that instant, the truth began to unfold. A holographic image flickered to life before them, projected by the structure. It was a human, much like the figure on Eden 9's monument, but this one seemed different. An older, more evolved version of humanity. The figure's eyes, glowing faintly with the same energy that emanated from the structure, locked onto the fleet's viewers, as though it were aware of their presence. "We have waited for you," the figure said, its voice deep, resonating through the fleet's comm systems. "You have come seeking answers, but you will not understand what you see. Humanity has transcended what you are. We have become what you feared we would be, what you could never be. We are not bound by flesh or time. We exist beyond the limits you know." The image flickered, and the voice continued. "We have unlocked the periphery, not as a place, but as a doorway. It is not just a region of space. It is a boundary between dimensions, a threshold. We did not flee from you. We crossed this boundary. And now it is your turn to decide. Will you remain in the reality you know, or will you venture beyond?" The fleet remained motionless, each individual frozen in stunned disbelief. No one could fully grasp the enormity of the revelation. Humanity, in its mysterious way, had evolved into something beyond the physical universe. They had become beings of pure energy, existing across multiple realities at once, freed from the constraints of time and space. Melik was the first to speak, his voice trembling with awe and fear. They've ascended. Humanity didn't just leave. They've opened the way for us to follow. But only if we are willing to let go of everything we know." Captain Arle stared at the projection, her mind reeling. The implications were vast, overwhelming. If humanity had truly unlocked the secrets of the universe, if they had transcended the very fabric of existence itself, then what did that mean for the rest of the galaxy? "We are no longer what you thought us to be." The image spoke again, its voice carrying a strange, mournful tone. "We leave you this choice. You will either remain in your galaxy, bound to the old laws, or you will step into the unknown, to join us in a new reality. The door is open, but time is fleeting." With that, the figure's image faded, leaving only the glowing structure before them. The energy pulsed once more, and the rift in space-time seemed to expand, as if inviting the fleet to follow. The fleet's sensors went wild, the space around them warping and twisting, as if the very laws of physics were being rewritten. Arle's hands gripped the helm tightly. "What are we waiting for?" She muttered to herself, her voice barely audible over the comm. "The galaxy we knew is gone. Humanity has already moved beyond it. The fleet was now faced with an impossible decision: to stay in the safety of what they knew, or to follow humanity into the unknown, where reality itself was no longer certain.